now. Anybody else got any fun stories about watching, observing people's needs?
I watched the Tony Robbins. I really liked him on his take.
Yeah.
He was so, yeah, you could watch and listen to him all day, but he was very good.
Short, sharp, and
Yeah,
directly to the point.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Did anybody else get to watch the Tony Robbins one?
Not
Yeah,
yet.
Elise is nodding. Karen, you haven't yet. It's all good.
No.
I will pummel you with lots of videos. You don't have to watch any of them, but they're just they're there
Oh
if
no,
you.
I've actually been slowly, but I just haven't had much of an opportunity this week. But I'm definitely building a list to do.
Yeah.
I started to watch the lecture. I've only like 20 minutes in. I can't remember his name, but the lecture he posted about psychic attacks, and I was so interested. I was like, oh my gosh, who have I been psychically attacking? Like far more aware of like my own energy and how I'm projecting that onto other people. And yeah, it was just really interesting to think about it like that.
Well, at least you love David Snyder. That'll take you down a whole rabbit hole of just like, oh, what's possible.
Looking forward to it.
Did anyone else sorry, start again. Did anyone else watch the David Snyder one or start watching it or any?
Yeah, he was awesome.
Who said that then? Oh, you, Nicole?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Subscribe to his thing and I'm starting to he's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. Is that for anybody who didn't watch it, no, again, it's just there in the toolkit. David Snyder's an NLP trainer, also trained in martial arts. He has a strong focus on the way that energy works with the body, the way that energy works with the mind. And there are some things in this training that I will introduce you to from David Snyder. Technically, he's not doing pure NLP technically. But yeah, we'll bring in some of those fun tools in the toolkit. Was there anything that stood out to you, Nicole or Elise, or anyone who watched it about like his approach to energy?
Well, because of this stuff I do with the spinal energetics, that really all came into play because he taught Shell, you're gonna love it when you watch him. He's so cool. And he just talks about like auric fields and like where does stuff start? Like does it start at the body and go out or does it start at outer and come in? Like yeah, it's just yeah.
Yeah.
I mean
Now,
he's one of those people. He's obviously amazing at what he does because he's like, he tells you everything he's ever done and he's done this and he's done that. So that's quite funny, but he can back it up. So it was really good.
that is actually part of pure NLP, where the energy starts in the body, which way is it spinning, being in charge of your energy to spin it in the opposite direction, and therefore, yeah, and all of the different things that you can do with that. And yeah, Elise, you make a good point about the projections that I was talking to a client this week and she was really flabbergasted by her brother who had made big assumptions and kind of projected on her old conditions from her childhood. And she really felt that projection and then had to go into the NLP toolkit and undo it. Otherwise, it was going to bring her back down to little girl mode. When you're the oldest in the family and you're people pleasing and you're managing everybody, she went back into that mode and pulled herself out of it. So it's, yeah, a lot of fun to play with. Has anybody got any NLP questions or anything from last week that came up this week? Anyone got any questions at all? No? Okay, so I'm going to go off to the slideshow.
Well, I have a quick question, Claire.
You can have a big question, Shelley.
In the Facebook group, you were mentioning that there's like some tools to essentially maybe shift if you think that you're one driving force than the other.
Yes,
Can you talk a little bit about that?
absolutely, because I've been playing with that.
Yay.
Yeah, so Shell, now I want to quickly check because I know names are really important. Is it Shell or Shelley?
Shell, but I answer to Shelley as well. It's an Aussie thing for sure. My name is actually Michelle, but I
I'm going
don't.
to call you that.
No, 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 no. Shell or Shelley, either or.
Shell, when you think about this odd thing, the first thing that comes to mind, when you think about the knowing that the sun will rise tomorrow, and you get in touch with that idea, that belief, where outside of your body is like that picture or the knowing that the sun will always rise?
Where is that what? Sorry?
The picture or the knowing, there's a picture outside of you that will represent the knowing that the sun will always rise.
What do you mean? Sorry, where is that picture?
Yeah, open your eyes for a second. So when I think about I'll start again. When I think about my husband,
Mhm.
my memories will bring up pictures just about here of David. It'll be a good feeling. It'll be something that draws me to it. When I think about my ex-husband, he's back there. So when you think about somebody that you know that you adore, where around your body is that picture?
Well, eye level.
Perfect. And so when you think about your goals for your future, the things that you want to create, the certainty that you want, where around your body is that picture?
Yeah.
Yep. Play with me for a second, and everybody invite you to play if you want to. Michelle, I want you to imagine bringing that picture back up to, bringing it up to eye level. And notice what happens to your body. Do you notice any warmth, cool, tingling, moorishness? Like, what do you notice?
Well, I'm smiling.
Exactly. So everybody has that holograph, that energy field around them. And
Mhm.
sometimes when people say, you know, my goals are out of reach, Claire, why isn't it happening? It's literally because the way that they've coded that information is they've literally put it to the side. There's beliefs and things that are stopping them from putting it into that place of certainty, laser focus, like that's what I want and no matter what. And so when we look at the idea of connection, you somewhere around your body, you will have I won't go into the formal names of it, but somewhere around your body, you will have an idea on where is connection for you versus growth. Or I can't remember the others off the spot, uncertainty, variety, certainty. We can, with NLP, what we can do is we can, if you want growth to be the number one thing that you want to strive for, that takes up as much focus and the good energy, we can get your neural pathways to shift that growth to being right here, and it's now the number one thing that's the motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I suppose you would say as well, you would kind of move and shift throughout your time because I feel like I actually move in and out of those two, and I feel
Yep.
like that's a lot based on in terms of like external or society like pressures or like me trying to meet that specific one for others. So I feel like I'm moving
Yep.
into connection thinking that that's where I should be.
Yeah. Look, everyone's nodding,
Yeah.
going, yeah, the empaths in the room are like, I thought that's what I should be doing.
Yeah.
And then when you play with some modalities, when you start to play with how you perceive the world where things are in and around your body, then you will change the way that your beliefs are structured around that very, very quickly. So when we get to the submodality belief change, that's exactly what we can play with and make it happen very, very quickly. And the same with what you were saying, Sarah, about the values. If somebody, let's just go cliche, if somebody has a value, a man having a value on being the provider and putting great emphasis that he goes to work to be the provider, he will always say yes to working on weekends because that's his number one top value. That's like laser, like this is
The
what I'm
focus, yeah.
focusing on. Whereas if you make a shift in that man and say, you're now the family man, then he'll actually start to, and naturally won't take much willpower, but he will now say yes to weekends with the family instead of it being like this stressful push and pull kind of negotiation. And in just one session, you can make that happen again, taking away the willpower, and now the decisions that align to your values actually start to match up. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, I love the good questions. Has anyone else got questions after Cheryl's question?
I just have a quick
Lucy.
question. With the eyesight thing,
Yeah.
why eyesight is why would that signal your number one priority?
For Shell, it signals the number one. Your line of certainty might be somewhere else.
And how do you know where one slide of certainty is?
I just ask you. I just ask you and get in touch with it. So when you think about a decision that you made in the past that stayed the right decision, that got you the results that you wanted, does an idea or a decision come to mind?
Yeah.
And then when you get in touch with where that picture is in or around your body, what do you notice?
Top left.
And I'm curious, with the knowing that the sun will always rise, where is that picture?
That was the same, because that's top left.
And so any goals that you want, Lucy, I would then be doing, there's more processes to it, but I would be getting you, when I'm working one-on-one, knowing that about you, I would then definitely get you to move it to your zone of certainty, so that it naturally starts to flow. You're saying yes to the things that give you that, instead of doubt, indecision, frustration, being stuck. It's just like, no, it'll happen.
Okay, so there's no right, like everyone's will be different, and that's okay.
Yeah, no, if everyone's was the same, I would just be easily, wouldn't need to do personalized coaching, right? It would just be like, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions on that one?
So essentially, Claire, the goal is really just kind of like shifting that position.
Yeah, well, there's a few more pieces in that which we get into about week 10, but just starting to plant that seed for you to say, if you want growth to be the number one thing, then you can, and it'll moving somebody's top value, moving somebody's top, let's call it a value like that tonight, you will completely change their world very, 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 very quickly. So you got to check that it fits in with what they want for themselves. Does it fit in with their family, fit in with the world that they've created for themselves? Because you can definitely make changes too fast. Yeah, cool.
Cool. Thanks, Claire.
Anytime. All right, so I'm going to move into tonight's topics. Very, very quickly, while I just set up so I can see everybody. So last week was the first week, as we all know. There's a lot of information coming your way very quickly. So I just sort of build up what we need to know. So the written assessment is due on the 3rd of December. Feels like we've got plenty of time. And then the other one I just wanted to point out is that on the 10th of December, the very, very last night, you'd think that would be party night, but it's not. It's actually, you guys work, I don't, so it is my party night. But anyway, on the last night is when I put you into breakout rooms where you are the coach for an hour, and then I shuffle you all around again, and then you receive coaching for an hour, or it could go the other way. You could be receiving coaching and then be the coach. But on the very last night, the assessment is to be the coach, to utilize all the tools that I've taught you to help a fellow student. And so, that very last night's a big one. So just keeping that in mind. Any questions on any of that before I go too far ahead?
No.
Tonight what we're going to do is we're going to cover NLP presuppositions. But I've just this afternoon I decided I'm going to throw another piece of info in. So forgive me if it feels like we're leapfrogging But I felt like from last week, I can gauge from where everybody's at. I was like, no, I actually want to go into what is NLP at a much deeper level. Some of this stuff I would have covered off towards the end. I want to introduce it to you right up from the beginning. So again, just take in what makes sense. Believe me, it'll make sense by the time we get towards the end of it. Last week, I would have shown you this particular slide and the emphasis on when you change somebody's beliefs, then you will change the outcome that they get at a much higher level, and therefore it'll have a ripple effect throughout all areas of their life. The truth is, with NLP, we're looking at changing people's neural pathways, which works perfectly into Shell's questions earlier. That's why I was like, oh, this is exciting how it's all aligning really well. In your mind, your brain is composed of neural pathways, and we don't need to go into the science of that, but metaphorically, these are like the roads in your brain. The synapses are the intersections. So every experience that you're having is due to the roads that you're traveling in your mind. So who you are with your family, your beliefs, your words, your habits, your values, who you are at work, your beliefs, how you are, your values, who you are within your hobbies, your passions, all areas of life will have particular, well-rehearsed, very familiar neural pathways that you're all very accustomed to. And of course, some of those roads are going to be very worn out and a bit of an emotionally bumpy ride. And they're the roads that are creating, or the neural pathways that are creating that sabotage, procrastination, the doubt, the frustration and why you don't have what you want, because those neural pathways are just automatically taking you back into old limiting patterns. So of course, with NLP, we can undo those limitations and, like the metaphor here, put you in that driver's seat to create that smooth and enjoyable ride. And we pretty much do this by, again, navigating, like I did with Shell earlier, is navigate, and Lucy, to navigate how your mind works, what are the limitations, and really understanding how you work, again, to get into that driver's seat. The programming that you have in place, be it empowering, like a fancy app, or that outdated program, your brain, your mind, your body is going to function in that familiar way, because the ego knows that whatever's gotten you to this moment in time has proved to ensure your survival. It might have been uncomfortable, but what is familiar, what has proved your survival is it's the main road. Anybody got any questions on that so far? So then taking it one step further, and this, honestly, this took me a really long time to get this. And so I'm hoping with all of pretty pictures that it makes a lot more sense to you a lot quicker. So we have that stimulus from the outside world. For some reason, I'm thinking of my Nana. You know, you have that stimulus. You see Nana in her kitchen, you can smell her cooking. There's all of these pictures, the sounds of her voice, the taste, the smells. And that information that you receive, whether it's Nana, the football field, fireworks on New Year's, that information is taken in through your 5 senses, and your nervous system, your neural network is going to respond accordingly. It's going to code that. This is I'm doing a really big jump with you guys. I'm planting a seed, so I'm just going to go really slow with this. But believe me, we will go over this numerous times. As an example, a child will hear the tone of mum's voice. So there's an auditory, they will hear the tone of mum's voice. They will see her smiling. They feel good. And just by that experience, the nervous system has now created that program. Does that make sense, guys, when we're talking about like going back to childhood and root cause of the problem and stuff? Like this is as simple as it gets with how the program is created. What happens then if we've got the negative side of that? A child may go to school, they get bullied, so they see the bully, they hear them being teased, they feel scared in their body, and their mind creates that belief, that fear of being judged. Does that make sense? So then as an adult, being in business, as Karen said, got your big girl pants on, you may be required to do a presentation, but at the unconscious level, that fearful program is still running like on an old, outdated computer. It is still running that if I'm around others, that I could be bullied or judged. And so then when it comes to you being the grown-up to speak up, put yourself under that pressure to make a good impression, your body and your mind is actually going to generate a level of anxiety and restrict your energy to get you out of that scenario. The anxiety is actually there to protect you, to get you to, like, alarm bells, red flag, get out of here, because when we were in a similar situation, it turned out to be not okay. And so with that, with NLP, obviously, we can, start again. You can definitely do that presentation. You can push through with willpower. Pushing through a lot will be exhausting. You'll create chronic fatigue and burnout. Or what you can do with NLP is to be able to identify that root cause, the trigger, being back at school, and being able to undo the meaning that the mind put to that, so that now you can do that presentation, you can speak your authentic truth, because you're not running that program of do this equals being bullied. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lily.
Hi, sorry, I just got one question. How long after, like, does it have to be something that happened in the past, like way in the past, or can it be something that happened last week?
Do you mind sharing, like, is there an example that's coming to mind?
Yeah, my son is actually getting bullied at the moment.
Oh.
So he's just not very good at sport. He's being left out. And I'm just like, if you're doing it with children, to stop those beliefs and that feeling dragging to their adulthood, can you change it? How soon after and how close to their childhood could you change it?
Well, children are in that beautiful mind space of being in that theta brainwave. So they're taking in the world like a sponge at the moment. They don't have that critical faculty to logically separate themselves from that experience. So NLP will work with them. However, our adult minds make it a lot more complicated. Prove to me that this works. The skepticism. So there's a lot more steps in it for a grown-up than it is for a child. So the best way that I would have solved that, Lily, would be to actually switch roles, and bedtime or whatever is to be able to say to him, I'm actually feeling, I go to the shops or whatever, I'm feeling pretty bullied. There's somebody there that's not speaking to me nicely. What do you think I should do? And you can actually get the child to start to rehearse on how they would be the hero in the journey, because them in their story is way too big and consuming. Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Yep. Just like the dragon stories, but sort of creating another circumstance for them. Yep.
Yeah. And fingers crossed things change on that one. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking. It's
No,
hard.
I know, but I was just wondering if you could use some of these techniques to sort of change it, bite it on the butt sort of now, so to speak.
Yeah, and if he's having nightmares or situations or scenarios where, like, the bully's in his mind and he can't get away from it, it's like, mate, let's just shift him to the side. What's some good things that you can do at school, so on and so forth.
Can I share something that might help, Lily?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, lovely.
Okay. Something that you can do is help him look for the opposite, knowing that, like, there's law of polarity, right? So we live in a universe that, even down to a light particle, it's made up of a positive and negative ion. You can help him identify if he's feeling trapped, how is he free at school? If he's feeling rejected, how is he being accepted at school? If he's feeling criticized, how's he feeling praised? So you can just help him identify all the people, all the places, all the things in those moments where he feels the bullies coming onto him that are displaying and demonstrating the opposite in his life. E.g., does he think of you? Does he think of his nan? Is there a friend? Is there a safe space at school?
Yeah.
And help bring that to his attention, and that will help him feel a little bit less of the extremity. So that should help neutralize some of that emotion.
Awesome. Thank
Okay.
you. I really like that.
So then, thank you, Lucy. So then, so yeah, to wrapping this little piece up, this is that mind-body connection that I'm talking about with being able to shift the beliefs and yeah, as Lucy's articulated, that polarity, being able to shift it into the positive or the one that works for you, the belief that works for you. Okay, is there any questions on any of the neural pathways you kind of a little bit there planting that seed? What we're going to do now is we're going to go over the 12 NLP presuppositions. If you've got your manual, you don't need it for tonight because it's more theory than practical work, but it is on page 20 if you want that. Linguistic presuppositions, in a nutshell, these are linguistic equivalents of assumptions. There are 12 originally there was about 8, it's grown to about 12. So there's about 12 presuppositions of NLP. And these are principles, again, assumptions that will enhance yours and your client's life's experience in life. The presuppositions will weave into every NLP process, every NLP coaching session, because they're pretty much that foundation. If you hold on to these core assumptions, then you'll start to you'll automatically look for the good in situations. So the presuppositions, again, for the way that I observe them, they are observations and curiosity instead of the mind making conclusions and going into judgment. Now, the assessment does ask what are the presuppositions, so it is part of the assessment, heads up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each and every one of the presuppositions, and then what I'm going to do is, as we go through them, I'm going to call on different people or call on you all, whoever wants to speak up, on what does this presupposition sound like, what does it mean to you? And as a group, we'll sort of unpack the interpretation of the presupposition. So the very first one is to respect the other person's model of the world. In coaching, being able to respect their point of view. And yeah, I'm just going to go on a little bit more. So all communication centers around that rapport and creating that level of trust. So the presupposition to respect the other person's model of the world is coming back to the idea that you don't have to buy into their story, but it does help to overcome boundaries and barriers to be a little bit curious about the way that they perceive their world. So it's a difference of opinion. Yeah, it's just that respecting each other's viewpoints can help bring those barriers down to live in harmony. And just a little bit more here, everyone's model of the world is different. So depending on your childhood, parents, community, values, your beliefs, we all see the world differently. Even the siblings who were brought up in the same household, as the example here, the poor household, one may grow up to know their worth and to generate their wealth, to make that decision that they're worth more than this struggling hard life, while another may hold on to that limitation around money and claim that as their identity and go down that path. So again, respecting the other person's model of the world just enables you to be a bit curious about what's holding them back or the strategies they have for success. So yeah, this one's pretty straightforward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, does anyone want to have a go at this one? People are not their behaviors, except the person change the behavior.
People are not their behaviors, except.
Something that comes to mind for me is everyone's doing the best with what they have. And that's
Yep.
something that I always come back to. So I guess accepting that and assuming that they are trying their best with what they know, with what they have, with what experience they've grown up with, and not judging them for that, and giving them grace for where they're at, but focusing on solutions moving forward.
Yeah. Do you know what you've done there, Lucy, which is brilliant? You've actually in like a few sentences, you've articulated pretty much all the they kind of overlap. And so like, oh, that you listed out 3 or 4 then, which is great.
Sorry.
But yeah, no. It's exactly, you're already in that coach's frame of mind. It works well. It's just that I'm just like, I'm giggling, not at you. Like, it's like, oh gosh, so switched on. Yeah. Anybody else want to add to this one?
I think there's like space between the person and behavior. So it's just like respecting and or accepting that there's space between you and actions, and yeah, you and the world, and you and who you are.
Yeah. Have you got any, like, it doesn't need to be your privacy, but is there any situations or scenarios that are coming to mind for you where you've like witnessed somebody judging the behavior rather than, and seeing the behavior separate?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it takes that level to be able to distance yourself. Almost like you have to peel back from the situation to be able to see it a little bit differently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right, Elise. Because so this one is the way that you articulated that we are very quick to label people, be it behavioral labels, medical labels, attitude labels, and that to be, as a coach, to be really mindful not to see the person as that label, not to see that behavior. So, as an example, if someone might be angry, depressed, anxious, as a coach, it's like, what are they doing? Start again, to not be able to take on what they're doing as their identity. So accepting that there's that difference and opening the space for possibility and change. Thought there was more to that one. Again, they overlap a little bit. Anyone want to have a go at this one? Everyone, because Lucy's already on top of it. Everyone is doing the best they can with the resources they have available.
I think with this one, for me, what comes to mind is like the level of awareness that people, like self-awareness that people have, and what you can expect. Like, you can't really, like, people only do what they know. Like, does that, yeah. Does that kind of make sense? And like, some people might have a greater awareness of their own behaviors than others.
Yeah, so switched on. Yeah, thank you, Hayley. I'm curious, is there any life scenarios coming up for you with this one?
Yeah, I suppose the person I'm thinking of is my father-in-law here. And in the past, I've had quite high expectations of his behavior, and I've learnt sort of over the last couple of years to drop those expectations because he is doing the best that he can with what he's got. So yeah.
And that made a difference then to take you both off the hook with that one.
Yeah.
You make the really good observation there, the expectations. That's a better way to, that word needs to be in that presupposition, the expectations that you automatically put on people. Well, we all put on people, but yeah. Thank you. Go back to, I think Hayley's already articulated this, but even as a quick example and noticing within the way that your body responds, have you ever experienced the neighbor playing loud music in the afternoon and then you've automatically made a judgment on them? A client that texts you out of hours, and again, immediately there's that judgment, or they're so inconsiderate, why don't they consider me? A friend cancels at the last minute and you're convinced they're taking you for granted. A colleague asks you to pay the bill and assume they, again, taking. When we hold on to this presupposition that everyone's doing the best that they can with the resources they have available to you, this one is like what Hayley and Lucy articulated. It really does neutralize that polarity. But it does indicate that if there is that trigger in you, that you do need to do some coaching on it to have a look at what's going on within that, within the mind's way of, again, that judgment. So most people don't have the skills to set boundaries or to communicate effectively. I mean, that's why we do NLP, is to learn how to communicate effectively. So yes, we all have free will to do things differently, but responding with judgment actually means that we're creating that separation. I'm right, you're wrong. There's that expectation. So life works a lot easier when you come from the assumption that everyone's doing the best they can. And so then that neutralizes that, takes out that emotional potency, and you can just see it for what it is, which Hayley articulated really well, because a lot of clients, I think this week, have had, I don't know what's been in the air, but a lot of clients have like, why didn't my mother, white knuckles and stuff, why didn't my mother help me more when I had babies, or this or that? And it's like, yeah, actually, she was doing the best she could. She didn't have the skills to help you. She didn't have the skills to help you when you were the baby. So anyway, I'm waffling. Okay, the map is not the territory.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
There's like the balance though, right, of like finding the line of like understanding that everyone's doing the best they can, but also holding people to behaviors as well. Like,
yeah, tell me more.
You don't want to become the doormat. You're so accepting of everyone's behaviors and who they are, and then you're kind of
Anyone want to respond to Elise's? Well, let's get into the juicy conversation. Anyone want to add to that?
I think it's about setting healthy boundaries, right? Like, you cannot be the doormat by setting healthy boundaries and still respect people for where they are in their life.
Yeah. Anyone else want to add to that? Next week we're going into the difference between the week after, the difference of being cause and effect. And what you're talking about there, Elise, is when you are at cause, it comes back to that saying, shame on you. What is it? Shame on you if you hurt me once, shame on me if you hurt me twice. And so this one is coming back to the confidence in your choices and knowing that there'll be consequences. I'll either choose to have the consequences of being the doormat, or I'll choose to have the consequences, like Erin said, putting in my boundaries. Thank you. This is not where I want to be.
It's like that saying as well, like people don't know what they don't know, right? So unconscious of their behavior unless the feedback is given.
Yeah. Elise, is there anything that's sort of coming to mind, like a friend that's being a doormat, or you've been, because I think we can all put a hand up to going through that chapter of learning boundaries and stuff. Is anything coming to mind for you with that one?
Yeah, I think just like relationship stuff, like just trying to be so empathetic and so understanding, and then just not knowing where the line is sometimes. Like, should I? I think maybe that's just a people-pleasing thing, and that's just a line to find for me personally.
Yeah, the empath side of things is we're so trained to take on board other people's energy, take responsibility, taking on the assumption, well, I'll change to keep the peace and all of that. And it's like, well, actually, it's really uncomfortable and I think most of us, or all of us, have gone through that. Is really uncomfortable to actually pivot that around and going, actually, the consequences is on for you. Now, you may not know what you were doing, but I'm not sticking around for this. I'm not fixing up your mess. Rachel, it feels like you were going to say something then, but maybe not.
Yeah, I think it's like you can sort of be aware. It's like it doesn't mean that you're gonna let someone do something to you, but it's just more like seeing where they're coming from, I guess, like having that understanding or having that awareness of, okay, I see why this person is doing this, like accepting they're doing the best with what they have, but it doesn't actually mean that you're gonna then, let that impact you, if that makes sense. Sort of like it's just like an awareness, but then it doesn't have to mean any more than that, I think, is what I was thinking of when you asked that question.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Okay.
Thank
Can I
you.
just say something? I think it's
Yeah,
kind
please
of
go.
human nature when you're giving someone and giving and they're taking, they have that expectation after a while and they just take it and they don't think about it anymore. It's gone. So you've just got to kind of think, your value. Like I'm that person where I'm always giving, but I always know where to stop. If I see I'm being taken advantage of, or they're taking the piss now and it's just a habit now of taking, you just got to pull back and just get on with what you were doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Over the years, as when I was younger, I would just do it. But now, over the years, I kind of take back and just observe as well. And going, oh, you know what? I think I'll give them that little bit, but I'm going to stop there and just get on with it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and also like when you do go to set a boundary, then it means that you're doing it with sort of a loving awareness rather than attacking them, because you've got that respect for where they're coming from. So it's like, okay, I respect where you're coming from, and this is how I feel. So it sort of brings that awareness to the boundary that you're setting then as well.
Yay. I love these conversations. Everyone like enjoying this? Just it's good stuff. Thank you. All right, so then the next one I'm going to, without putting it up, the map is not the territory. Without even sort of going into too much more detail, has anybody, Lily would have heard this, but has anyone else heard the map is not the territory? There was a good old Facebook group, coaches, and somebody had said, tell me that you're NLP trained without telling me that you're NLP trained. And people were like, the map is not the territory. And I was like, yeah, that's not common day-to-day language. I think it needs to be modernized anyway. But we have this presupposition here that the map is not the territory. So the words that we use are not the event or the item that they represent. Does anyone want to have a go at what this weird and wonderful one could mean?
Is it like around the fact that our experience, like how we perceive our experience of a situation, we tell a story of how it is, and then that gets recorded in our memory as how it was, when someone looking on or experiencing the exact same thing might have had a completely different story to tell.
Yep, that's it. You've got it, Hayley. Karen's nodding. Yep.
I remember Rick talking about this with the two brothers and the alcoholic parent, and how one became an alcoholic and the other one didn't.
Yes.
But yet they had both had observed the same thing but perceived it differently.
Yeah, so switched on. Yes. So if anyone's been on a holiday with a friend, a loved one, you've had a wow of a time, they've had a miserable time, you've both been on the same holiday, and yet you've both, as Hayley said, you've got two different stories operating. This is what this one means, that the map is not the territory. The other way of putting this one is that the menu is not the meal. So just because you're reading it, just because you're recalling the story, just because you're identifying the possibilities of what you could eat or do, that doesn't actually tell you the full experience. So when you're in that coaching scenario with people and they're telling you all the things, you need to hold on to this presupposition that there's going to be something that they've left out, not included, possibly generalized or twisted. And that with the coach's hat on, it's like, okay, well, the map's not the territory. What else was going on? That meant that you had a miserable time on the holiday or a miserable time at the restaurant. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Can I share something on that for the people that like science? There was a study done on using fMRI machines, which measure the brain, where they showed everyone a bunch of bananas, and every single person's brain lit up differently. And that's just a bunch of bananas. And that helped me like land this point, because if every single person is seeing a different bunch of bananas, even though it's the same one, imagine when there's humans involved and there's like complexity of conversation and body language and emotion and all of that. So I like to explain that, especially if with clients when they're struggling to see it from a different perspective, you can kind of remind them of the fMRI machine and the banana study.
That's fascinating. Wonder what else they did other than bananas. It would have been quite interesting. Cool. Have a quick look what else I wrote about this one, but I think we pretty much articulated it, that the menu is not the meal. So yeah, regardless of how detailed the map could be, it doesn't actually represent the experience of each individual. So while we can spend time together doing the same thing, the same holiday, the same training, we both have different recounts of what was liked and what was disliked. And again, just keeping in mind that clients, I think doctors often say that, you know, like the client's always lying to you, like they're always leaving out something or they're making it exaggerated to get their needs met. So yeah, that one was a polite way in NLP world, is to be a bit, keep your coach's hat on, to be a bit curious about their point of view. Okay, this one should be quite simple, hopefully. You're in charge of your mind and therefore your results. Manny, do you want to have a go at this one?
Yep. So it's like whatever you see or think about, it just becomes the reality.
Yeah.
I think I was listening to the pre-training, and then it's like when you're thinking of buying a car of a particular color or model, all of a sudden you see those kind of cars on the road all the time.
Yeah.
So it just becomes the reality. Yeah.
Yeah, the fancy word for that's your reticular activation system. So say that one quickly 5 times. But yeah, so so yeah, everything that you were talking about, even with that silver method that you've been playing with, that that you are in charge of your mind, and therefore the results that you're going to create, what you're focused on, you're going to create, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to add to this? Back in the day when I did NLP training, I still remember this story where the trainer was saying, like, even the chair that you're sitting on came from an idea, the legs, the fabric, the wood, the metal, whatever you're sitting on there, that it all came from an idea. And therefore you are in charge of your mind, in charge of your mind, you are in charge of the results, you are in charge of, you know, that manifesting thing where people, you know, well, I'll change my beliefs and I'll attract it in. Part of that manifesting is to actually take action, that aligned action, to make it happen. So this presupposition that you're in charge of your mind and therefore your results goes a long way into maintaining that motivation to create what you want in life. Quickly have a look. Yeah, so everything you experience starts off in your mind. The way you experience your reality and what you want to focus on, again, all starts off in your mind. If your mind is focused on negativity, your nervous system must respond to that stressor. You may find yourself reacting to that negativity and therefore, some of the words are wrong in here, but therefore impacting your results. If you focus on looking for the good in life, again, like what a lot of people have articulated, focusing where you're at cause, the results are going to be very, very different. So while you can't control the external situation, you can control what you are focusing on. Oh, okay. You have all the resources you need to succeed. NLP is going to take this one step further. There are no unresourceful people, only unresourceful states. Anyone who hasn't spoken want to give this one a go?
Sure. All right. So I think sometimes you can overthink things, for sure. And this obviously comes under and then you just get a bit stressed, and then you look for all sorts of resourceful things to bring you back to the present, to try and get you out of the overthinking. And when you kind of just take a step back, then you will look at all what you've got and you actually are succeeding.
Yes, yes. I like how you've gone to that rumination of thought there, Sarah. And it's like, yeah, you just get stuck in a spin, and it's sort of like, this is not a resourceful state. Like, what can I do to come back
Yeah.
to being productive?
Yep.
Brilliant. Thank you. Does anyone want to add to this one? Here's the other way. Does this trigger anybody? No triggers?
It would have
No.
before, like a few years ago, I would have been pissed off.
Elise, let's talk, because I was you in a training. Flip the table. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I just feel like I was at a point where I was just pushing so hard. I was trying so hard. I was searching for a job that was meaningful, and I was getting nothing. And like, it was just for a long period, it was a struggle. And so to see something like that would have been like, wow. But I see now.
Yeah. This one, if you like, from my chapter when I was homeless and things, like this was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I'm pushing shit uphill every day trying to what do you mean I've got the resources? But it was that extra little bit there that you that there are no unresourceful people, only unresourceful states. So going into a depressed state was not an option. It was about what can you do to focus on what is working. The pillow is soft. I got my cup of tea. It's working for me in this now moment. And it was back then, it was just hour by hour instead of like, what are we doing for the week? So can you relate to that? At least maybe not that extreme, but can you relate to that?
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I'm exactly the same. 100%. It would have triggered me a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But I think that whole like just surrendering to it, just yeah.
Yeah. So surrendering for you, Erin, is a resourceful state. Like you've made it that works for you now.
Yeah. Like growth is a really big like need for me. We don't talk about it. It's fine. But I think surrender, like doing the steps and then just surrendering to it is what works for me. But yeah, it's definitely that resourceful state.
Yeah. And like Sarah was saying, like that spiraling of thought is like, no, come back to surrender it, let it go. What can we focus on that works?
I'll just share. I did a course a couple of years ago, and looking back on it, I think the whole thing was NLP onto everyone that was in in it. But the big thing was, if you get stuck in that state and you don't think you can succeed, they used to get you to focus on your ways of being. So what way of being can you move into to get to one next step? So is it a way of being curious? Is it a way of being joyful? Is it a way of being, I don't know, I can't think of the other ones, but it was a really good tool to shift that state, like just a small focus on one thing of what's one different thing I can do to start that domino effect.
Yeah, getting that momentum. Yeah, that's what intrigues me about NLP, is how simple the steps are to get that momentum going into the right direction. I mean, you can with NLP you can go super duper complex, quantum linguistics and all sorts of weird fun stuff. But like that simple step there, Nicole, like, yeah, what's that one one thing, appreciation you could have right in this moment? We probably don't need to go to the next slide. Let's have a look though. So yeah, as I've already articulated, this one can sound overpromising and disrespectful if you're in a really tough situation. But this presupposition doesn't actually mean the material resources. It really comes back to the empowered state. Yeah, as everyone's articulated, the internal resources. Having a skim read there. Yeah, the other point on this one, that we're all trained to look outside of ourselves for strength. This one's actually encouraging you to encourage your clients to come back to their mindful, empowered state. This one, there is no failure, only feedback. Anyone who hasn't spoken want to give this one a go? Before we get to the complicated ones, does anyone want to give this one a go?
I'll have a go.
Yeah.
Because there's no failure, only feedback. To me, this one is all about like that redirect. So no matter what you do or a decision you make or have a go at, you find out if it's wrong and then you just do the next thing and try again. And, if you make a mistake, great, then you learn from it, you don't do it again, or maybe you do it again and then you do it again and you do it again, but it's just feedback and you'll have a different outcome next time.
Yeah, absolutely. It is quite simple, that one. I'm curious, Rachel, when would you define something being a failure?
I guess you could say if you didn't learn from it, but even then, I think it would just present itself again until you do. But I don't know. That's a good question.
From my research, the timing came into it. We're going way off track, but that's where I like to add that contrast. Is by definition, a failure is when you've put a date or a time limit. It must happen by this date. Only then, by technicality, is it technically failing the outcome. But again, there's still lessons there. There's feedback, but depends on the different context. So sorry, I just got completely distracted with buttons. So defining something as a failure will always bring in a level of shame. So shame for people comes in with how they measure up. So while feedback is always valuable in demonstrating new opportunities, we always have the choice how we interpret our experience. And if we lean into feedback and learn from our experience, then it can never be a failure. Anytime you get feedback telling you why you can't do something, it's not a reflection of your potential or you as the person. It's actually a reflection on the person and their conditioning. So yeah, you have the power to learn and make changes. Oh, Lilo, I was like telepathically going, go for that easier one. Alrighty, so let's play. The law of requisite variety. The person or the system that has the most flexibility controls the system. Anyone in the room want to have a go at this one?
I'm going to have a little attempt. I'm thinking it's some more flexible is being more open. So potentially being open to new opportunities or to change, but if someone's not flexible, then obviously they don't have control because they're standing still and they're quite rigid in their position.
Yes. Yeah. I'm like, keep going, Karen. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I could, yeah, but so the more flexibility you have and the more openness you have to experiences, I guess, or learnings or change or people.
In your previous lifetime when you did work for managers, CEOs and stuff, how flexible were that, or which was the better manager, the one who was flexible or the one that was rigid?
Obviously the one that was more flexible.
Yeah, because this particular presupposition is actually, it's on the next slide, I'll skip ahead, is actually the leadership law. I don't know where these big words come from, but knowing that we're all part of that complex system within many moving parts, the leader in charge of the system or the leader in charge of your life needs to have awareness of what the options are so they can be flexible to move with what's for the greater good. So this one here is really emphasizing to create psychological safety within the people that you work with, to be able to empower people around you to come, to honor their ideas, to be able to be flexible, to include the greater idea for the system, for your life, for your family, for the business. Does this one make sense? You did so well, Karen, because like
Yeah, no,
big
and being
fancy words in that one.
adaptable. So being flexible is being adaptable too. I think they both go hand in hand.
Yeah, yeah. And then therefore it's that spectrum, instead of the dichotomy and the rigidity of what's black and white, the rules, it's coming back into the shades of grey, being able to be flexible on what are the options. Yeah, instead of being fixed and rigid. So
Yeah.
if there's somebody who's fixed and rigid, we know that they've probably got a strong need for certainty, right? Tying it all back in. I think we've got 2 or 3 more and then we will have a break. Okay, so the meaning of communication is the response you get. Anyone want to have a go at this one? I'll bring up the next slide. So the meaning of the meaning of communication is the response you get. So the purpose of communicating with someone is to get a specific response. I know I'm in charge of the words I say, but I can't rely on the other person interpreting my message. So this is where that validation is absolutely key in communication. Otherwise, it's actually an illusion that we've been understood. So sometimes working with clients with either complex trauma or a really heavy duty, deep session with somebody, I will make sure that I relay back to them what I've heard them say. We will have a look at different strategies moving forward. And then I will deliberately ask them, okay, tell me what you've heard from this session. Help me understand that we're both on the same page. And so with this presupposition, it is emphasizing the trust, the rapport that you have with somebody, emphasizing the validation that you need to get from your client. Just don't assume that they know what you're talking about. If you say one thing and then get an unexpected response, it's not effective to blame the other person for not hearing properly, but it is your responsibility to come back to the fundamentals to ensure rapport is in place. I know from my own, I giggle at myself. I know from my own experience where I've paid a lot of money for coaches and then worked out that they're not actually NLP trained. And so what happens is that I end up actually, and you'll probably find this yourself, subliminally coaching them to articulate, to identify what is it that you're trying to communicate to me now so that we can get the best results within this session. And so it's important, right? That validation to know that you're both on the same page. Don't just assume. Anyone else want to share on that one?
Sorry, Claire, when you just shared that experience, did you mean like when you were seeing a coach?
Oh yeah, I will always encourage coaches to put their money where their mouth is and go have a coach. I recently paid about 30 grand for my coach to help me with releasing my book and to do different things within my business. And in a nutshell, she was very much recommendation, to-do list. And I was like, you haven't asked me if I think those things are a good idea.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, I have to work out, okay, for what purpose are we doing that, and what specifically, and when we've done that with other clients, how did they respond? So
that's really interesting you say that, because I've had a similar experience with coaches as well, not really understanding like the structure, like we're not on the same page.
Yeah, and then you need coaching for that coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still there.
So I was always taught, sorry to interrupt, but I was always taught like it's good to do a temperature check. So, and what I mean by that is like coaches should always offer you like even up to a 20-minute temperature check conversation to see if this is going to be good synergy, if you are on the same page, if they understand the model that you present as a coach, and if that feels right for them too. So I think, yeah, I don't know, just whenever you're choosing people, they should offer that for free. That shouldn't actually be a part of the charge, but to make it worthwhile for you as a coach and for you to be a coachee.
Yeah.
Always try and have that temperature check conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's a good that's a really good way of putting it, Karen. And that's where from my own experience, I thought I did enough temperature checks, and then anyway, in a nutshell, she stepped aside, and then the next person who works for her came in. So that's where it was like, oh,
yeah, which is not right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the lessons that I got, failure, what was the presupposition? Like there's not failure, only feedback. The feedback that I got was what not to do in my business. So
I think, yeah, I've had some of those too.
Yeah, cool. Anyone else want to share their fun? Doris.
Hi, Claire. I do have a question on that one.
Yeah.
When you say validation, what was it? The meaning of communication is the response you get. Oh, what is it?
Yep.
Validation is a must for communication. By validation, do you mean like the expected response, or someone saying, yes, I understand what you're saying? Like, what do you mean by validation?
What does validation mean for you, Rachel?
Validation. I think the alternative is you get an unexpected response. So I guess the validation would be you get the response matches what you're asking or what you're communicating. Is that what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyone else want to share what their interpretation of validation is? It's a good question.
Is it like reassurance?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so even just in our brief messages, Rachel, and I was like, I just got to get my own, I just want to check in. I heard this, is that correct? Instead of making big assumptions. Yeah.
So like opening sentences, like what I'm hearing is, what I'm seeing is, do you mean like that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's David Snyder. No, that will be Chris Voss. I'm going to so sidestep, but one of the strongest ways to create psychological safety in negotiation, in communication, is exactly those phrases, Shell, is to say, like, what I'm hearing is, and then the other person will, A, feel understood, and B, they will probably give you a whole lot more information because you've created that psychological safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, I invite you to play with that one with people this week if you've got the time and the headspace.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Cool. So yeah, just a little add-on here because I'm a mum of 4 daughters. If I continue to repeat the simple phrase, go clean your room, and then not seeing the results from that, then yes, you could have a conversation with your daughter about why they're not listening to you, but it's actually looking at better ways to communicate, to be heard, to be understood, get their point of view. So yeah, simple example there. We're nearly through these then to have a break. All procedures should be designed to add choice and the wholeness to the person. I'm curious, Lilo, does anything stand out to you about this one, especially with the clients that you work with?
What does it mean by procedures?
Yeah, I know, right? We need to modernize this.
Yeah.
We could change that to processes. We could change that to, different options.
Oh, nothing's ringing a bell, to be honest.
All good, all good.
That's a very hard one. I should have gone first.
Is this just more around empowerment? Like
they're all around empowerment. Did you pick up on that? Yeah, this one is about empowerment, but like Lilo, when you're working with somebody who is adamant that they want their hair and makeup done, do you then say, well, looking at your face, I would encourage you this option or that option, or do you just go with what they want?
Yeah, I give them options of what would suit them. Yeah.
Do you notice then that they start to relax when they've got those options?
Yeah, they do. They start to trust me more. Yeah.
Yeah, full body tingles. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, this one from a coach's perspective is to say that all processes when you're working with a client should, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that word, but should be designed to add choice to the wholeness of the person. This presupposition has 2 layers to it. So people do get stuck in their thinking that they're trying, people get stuck in their thinking that they are trying things differently, but they're actually metaphorically still sitting on the same chair. So a coach's job sometimes is actually to give themselves permission to be comfortable to try something completely new, which means actually get off the chair, metaphorically. So what this presupposition is saying is if you can offer your client more choices, to see things in a new light, to expand what they thought was possible, then you're giving them that freedom where they're not being trapped, they're not shooting themselves, you're giving them, a whole different level of variety, right? I think we can all agree when you got that variety, not too overwhelming, but a variety of different ways to go about things, that's appealing, would you say? When I'm working with a client and when I'm working with a client, usually I actually haven't one-on-one coached many of you in this particular group. The way that I will work with somebody is I will deliberately set things up and I will pre-frame that I'm going to ask you a whole lot of different questions. It's going to feel like we're leapfrogging around. Once I've got that golden aha, things happen at my end, the body tingles, like, right, we're ready to go into a process. But before I go into a process, I will let the client know I've got 2 options right now. We can go into the past to go sort that out, or are you more comfortable to look at the future and sort it out in that direction? I want you to trust your intuition. I want you to feel empowered about what's right for you. The client says, I don't know, Claire, you be in charge, then I'm going to do what I want to do. But I really hold on to this presupposition quite strongly that the client knows if they're trusting their intuition, then I'm going to go with that and then work around it. I think that from my model of the world, that's what works with the type of people that I work with, the empaths and the sensitive souls who have always done what the other person wants. It's like, no, that's actually the coaching is to get decisive on what works for you. Does anyone have any questions about that piece? So then the last bit on that one, because I told you that there's 2 versions to this presupposition. You are a whole being, as we know. However, if you've been triggered, like that scenario I spoke about with being bullied in the past, there is that part of you from the past that's still holding on to the fear of being judged, the insecurities, the doubt. And so it's like you've been almost like fragmented. There's an aspect of you that's still needing their needs to be met, still waiting to be heard, still waiting to be understood. And so the processes in NLP actually help somebody come back into alignment. So instead of there being parts of themselves all over different time streams, you get the client to come back into their aligned truth. So it's a lot easier for them to move forward. So this presupposition has 2 ways about it. Again, any questions about that? You're looking a bit confused, Ray, or is that just thinking face? I'll get to know the thinking face versus the question face. Oh, I thought we had 2 more to go. I think we've got 2 more. I'm going to go through this one quite quickly because it's similar to what we just had. Resistance is a sign of lack of rapport. So there are no resistant clients, only inflexible communicators. Oh, cleansing breath. Okay, so effective communicators accept and utilize all of the communication presented to them. If people resist, it means that we're not in good rapport. And so our role as the coach is to do our best to actually build that rapport, to question ourselves, not the other person, like what can I do to connect to this person with integrity and sincerity in order to build up that trust again. So that real rapport is actually happening at an unconscious level. So it, again, emphasis is to go back to rapport. But this one is saying that, to stay at cause, not to blame the other person, but to come back to the fundamentals, to build up that rapport again, instead of seeing that resistance as a block. So like Karen was saying, you need a thermometer check before you move ahead. Any questions on this one? You can tell I'm thrilled about this one. Behavior and change are to be evaluated in terms of context and ecology. Does this make sense to anybody? Courtney, we haven't heard from you tonight. Do you want to have a go at this one?
I don't know.
Good. When you're doing your kinesiology work and a client comes to you and they're like, maybe they're, give me a quick problem that a client's come to you with, like one that's first thing that comes to mind.
Anxiety.
Yep. And so okay, I'm going to go down a dark path. Let's say that that client is in an abusive sort of situation and scenario. Would you actually shift that anxiety, or would you work on something different?
Yeah, right, got you. That makes sense.
Yeah. We didn't even have any words then.
Brilliant. I feel like it's probably, now that I'm reading this, it's like the context is kind of like where it came from.
Yeah.
Not the symptom, it's the root cause.
Yeah. So if I make this change, what will be the consequence to me? Okay, the client, to their family, to their world. So in that scenario, that was a bit brutal, that one, but yeah, in that scenario, instead of shifting that anxiety, let's go in and listen to it, and therefore we're going to go do something completely different, right? So for everybody, when you're in that coaching role, when you consider doing a process, you do need to check in that you know the client well, check in the ecology. So that means like it means environmentally, like does it fit in with them, their family, good for the planet, good for their body, good for their soul. And just to be really mindful about how potent some of the coaching skills are, that while you've got that magician's wand, you can make a lot of big changes for somebody. Are they ready for those changes? Is it a good thing to make those changes? And thinking about, as I'm more on an empowered example, is somebody who's wanting to work on their wealth and their financial independence, working on the idea of them traveling all over the world. They may have 2 little kids at home. And so you want to check in with them, like what is their definition of that full-blown financial independence? Are the kids coming with you? Like, what does that look like? It's probably not the best example, but it's just, again, the presupposition to just check in before you go change somebody's values and suddenly they're an independent woman and they haven't even told you they've got kids. Like it could go very sour very quickly. This is the last one, I can tell you that, because this is Morris, my dog. All behaviors have a positive intention. So I had, I had started painting, and then Morris decided he'd come up on rub up against the enamel painted door trims, didn't even get to finish it. And so this presupposition is to remind us all that there's a positive intention on why people are doing what they're doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. So again, when you're working with people such as a smoker, wouldn't be getting too focused on the behavior of smoking. As a coach, we're looking at what's the positive intention underneath smoking, how is that serving them, what's going on. So we could very quickly judge to say the smoking is a negative behavior, but what I know to be true when I'm working with some mums, not smoking, I don't tend to work in the smoking world, but I do know that some mums will go and create a chocolate addiction, and they're hiding in the garage or the laundry with their chocolate just to get a breather and a break from their kids. And so they may come to me wanting, again, I don't do weight loss anymore, but they may come to me with weight loss and to be more disciplined in themselves. And it's like, we're not going to just give up the chocolate without having a look at what is the need underneath that that's causing you to reach for that comfort food. What's actually going on that's creating a ripple effect of problems, but it's serving them in some way, shape, or form. Imagine that one makes sense to everybody. Oh, I see. I think that should be that is that last slide on that one. We have survived NLP presuppositions. Yeah. Hopefully you're sort of taking photos and making it easy for yourself to do the assessment on that piece there. The presuppositions, as I said, it's just about being curious, ways to empower you, ways to empower your clients. There's not much more to do with presuppositions besides just getting familiar with them. There's no process or anything, so to speak, but they will come into every coaching scenario when you've got this foundation to be curious about what causes people to do what they do. Is there any questions on anything that we've covered up to now? Yeah, Lily.
Oh, I can just say that because I have done this halfway through once before. It's probably easier. It's actually really, I would print out the assessment sheet, and as we go through it, just have it there. And I find that if I write my answers as we go, because they're not that complicated, it's not like essays, and it just really helps. So that's another, and then you go in, and then I do the digital one at the end.
Yeah,
but that's
a good tip. Does that make sense to everybody? Like, just do what Lily does.
Print off the assessment, and as we go through it each week, you can just have it there, and you can just type right in the answers. Makes it easier.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so we will come back at about 8:15, and then we will move into the next piece. I'll see you in a bit.
Thanks, Claire.
Everybody's here. I'm looking at Elisa's suggestion about Elizabeth Day. How to fail. Anyone heard of that one?
No.
Yeah, I've made a
Yes.
note of it.
A whole lot of pink. In my after we finish NLP, I'll go play with that one down that rabbit hole. Mm. How did you guys all sleep after the last NLP? Like easy, or you were all like busy minds?
Busy minds, couldn't sleep. It was awful. I think I was awake till like 1:30 in the morning. It was terrible.
We should have just had a chat.
Wow.
Sarah, if you were going to mediumship class, so because I remember when I used to go to mediumship class, like that spirit would just keep me awake till 1 in the morning. Do they do that for you?
Yeah, they can do. Yeah, especially once I've got a few things on in the week. Yes. Busy.
Anyone else have trouble sleeping after last Tuesday?
Yeah, I did, but I think it's exactly about that podcast.
Not really?
I just sort of walked. I think I said to you, I feel like I've just got to let go. I think for me, I've got very comfortable in the models that I've used for quite a long time. So at the moment, my head's still going, okay, well, how does that fit? And does that fit in like, and I just feel like I need to completely let go of it all. And yeah, and just see this as one entity and not think about it in the coaching world yet. Just learn it for what it is.
Yeah. Has anyone got any suggestions for Karen? If one of your goals, Karen, was to shift into a different clientele, then would you invite your thoughts to go more to how do you want to serve those new people?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the difference, my coaching in the end became people who were more sent there than actually wanted to be there. So I'm really looking forward to working with people who really want to be there. A lot of my coaching was often bound by KPIs as well.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to always have flexibility to coach. So there was sometimes an agenda as well. And when I think back on it, I loved when I just had the freedom and I had people who were completely open to just coaching. And we would end up doing things, nothing work related at all. It would be more about them. So that's what I loved. And that's what I want with this. I want to move completely away from that corporate side. If I go back into corporate, it will be on my terms, not theirs next time.
Yeah. I don't get the sense that you'll go back to corporate, but I do get the sense that you may work with people who are transitioning out of corporate.
Well, let's hope so. But yeah, definitely working with people who want it and who are open to the process, because that's when I loved it. And yeah.
Well, I was talking to Rick just yesterday and just saying to him, hey, like I'm seeing you do a whole summit workshop overseas, 5 different speakers, working with corporate people, but giving them a wake-up call. And he's like, yes, that's actually booked in, Claire. And that's where the energy is similar, Karen, is like working with people who have stepped out of corporate and getting them to wake up, like it's like back into their autonomy.
Well, that
And you're leading the way
that
to do that.
excites me. Yeah, and definitely I've got positive psychology is a lot of what I've used, and but I'm looking forward to using that and playing with it in a different environment too. So I'm loving that this can be another toolkit that I work with, like another tool that I can access and work with. I just need to learn to
Give yourself permission to play.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yay, cool. And
Yeah.
anyone else got suggestions for Karen? Not that she asked for it, but I figure we're
Oh,
all
I'm
here.
open. I will take anything.
Just following on from what Claire said, I don't know if people are familiar with Brene Brown's work, but she talks about writing permission slips. So it could just be, Karen, before you jump on the call, you write that permission slip, permission to play or permission to learn or permission to be open-minded or permission to let go as just a center of intention.
I like
Lucy's
that.
just given your business name permission to play.
Yeah, and permission to let go, I think, too. Let go of what I know and what I've had. And this is taking me out of my comfort zone. So
Yay. Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah.
Yay. Erin's in charge of surrendering. She's going to teach us how to do that by the end of this coaching. No pressure, Erin.
None at all.
Cool. Is there any questions about presuppositions? We get into more of the fun stuff. Fun stuff it is. So between now and next week, we do have a smidgen bit of home play. And you know me, it'll be up on Facebook tonight or tomorrow morning. I need you to fill this questionnaire that'll take you about 5 or 10 minutes. It's called your representational system. Have I got another slide for it? No, I don't. Maybe? No? Okay, I have to rely on memory. So your representational system is the way that you like to, your preferred method of communication. So some people are more visual, some people are more auditory, some people are more kinesthetic, feeling based. And then the AD world, then the NLP world takes it one step further and says that there's also AD people. So the AD people are the people who like the mental challenge, the criteria. Everybody has an element of being AD within the self-talk, but the person who's really full-blown AD is my husband, who loves to be that computer geek, how pieces of the puzzle come together. Anyway, I'll go into more detail of that next week. But what happens is when you know your representational system, you start to recognize if you are more visual, then the language that you're using are going to be more visual. You know, you're going to describe the picture, you're going to describe things if they're bright or they're, I can't think on the spot now, blurry, black and white. The way that you perceive the world, the way that you like to be spoken to will be that avenue, compared to somebody who's more kinesthetic, which means that they're going to be more feeling based. These people are the reason that I love doing Zoom trainings instead of in person. No, I'm teasing. The kinesthetic people love to give you a hug. They love to stand up close. They textures are important to them. Take them online shopping and they have a nightmare because they want to feel the textures and things like that. Do we know kinesthetic people? You're all putting a hand up going, Claire, I'd hug you. Yeah, thank you. I'd hug you too, but I'd have to prepare my, no, I'm teasing. So then what was the other one? The auditory. I actually don't get auditory people in my trainings, but the auditory people are the ones who are really acutely aware of tone, sound, the way that someone said something to them. We're all going to have a percentage in all 4 of those quadrants. However, you will have a preferred method. And again, we're going to go into this next week, but I get all excited about this stuff. If you think about a couple where somebody is quite kinesthetic, touchy, tell me your feelings, and then the person who's very AD, who has to almost kind of make a picture of feelings to to identify the criteria of feelings before they know what a feeling is, you can imagine the communication mishap where they may have married and come together and work well together, but when she says that she wants the beautiful Christmas tree, the natural one, she's going to feel into the feelings of that and the memories that you can create, and he's going to say, but the plastic one is cheaper. So when you know this about your representational system, you are very switched on to knowing how to effectively communicate to the other person. I'm waffling, so please pull me back in, but this is also helpful when you get to the hypnosis part of NLP, because if I've got a client, I'm visual, and if I've got a client who's very kinesthetic based, I need to change the language. Instead of like, oh, see your beautiful safe space and tell me what do you notice, tell me what do you feel in that safe space and where do you feel it in your body. Like I have to deliberately change my language so that the hypnosis works for them. And that's where clients may come to me a little bit vulnerable, feeling like, oh, will this work? And it's like, yes, it will work, because I've never had anybody who couldn't. But this is one of the tools that gives somebody that comfort, that indicates you know what you're doing. This is all next week, but even at that surface level, is there any questions?
You might cover it next week, but how do you know what your like predominant one is?
Oh, good question. So my husband, my digital husband, made a digital questionnaire, which I'll put up on the Facebook group. So I'm the only NLP trainer in the world who has a digital questionnaire on this. Otherwise, there's a, fill it out, and a printable one, fill it out and add up your scores, which you guys get a copy of. It's in the NLP menu. The other way that we know this, Lucy, is because I'm listening out for what's known as your predicate, the language that you're using in the way that you're describing what's important to you. I'm watching your eye patterns because that's telling me so much. So even though I try to switch off the psychic-y stuff, a lot of NLP is still that profiling and very acutely aware of the sensory acuity of what's happening for you in your world and the way that you present. So the formal answer is, from filling out the questionnaire, but you'll also notice when you start to practice listening for the predicates, which is the language people use, even when it's watching TV, your friends, people watching. I can't remember, was that you, Erin, or Rachel? Somebody was going to people watch with me, and they're visual because the way they present themselves versus the kinesthetic person. So yeah, I waffled, but did that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else got any questions on that? So what I need from you between now and next week is to fill out that questionnaire. And it does take me about an hour or two sitting on the couch with David, because he's also an NLP trainer. And we like to give you a bit of a reading about what your scores say about you and what an NLP person can anticipate when they know what your scores are. So the sooner you fill that out, the better it is for me and David when he's after work, to be able to gift that little mini reading to you guys when we get up to it, so you identify what's going on. I will take a breath, but once you start to recognize what representational system we all are, when you start to get paired up, there's a level of expectation for you to kind of play with that, to start to notice if you're working with the visual person, they respond to the process, and you may in your spare time pair up with somebody else who's more kinesthetic and notice how the process is different, again, based on the way that they perceive their reality. There's no expectations to do any of that homework, but the representational piece will follow you in all of the rest of your coaching. Not just coaches that use it, police people, judges, teachers. I've taught a lot of teachers NLP. They're on top of their students and teach in a different way. Anyway, I'm waffling, but that's for next week. Any other questions on that one? Cool. So, oh yeah, and I'll have a whole tally score. It'll be fun. If you've got your manual, we're going to page 33, but we're not necessarily going to need it quite yet. Just skip that one. What I want to cover with you is learning strategies, also known as expanded awareness. And we'll carry through up to about 9:15-ish with this info. Okay. Hold on please bear with me 1 second because I thought I had this picture first. Bear with me. No, okay. So I'm curious from everybody, and just call out, especially if we haven't heard your voice, much of your voice tonight, what do you need or what helps you with learning, focus? Yeah, I'm going to leave that question quite vague like that. Does anybody know what they need to get into that learning state? Shell's nodding.
For me, it's just like participating as much as possible. So the more engagement for me, repetition in different ways.
Yep, yep.
So
Yeah.
between like the Facebook group, between here, yeah.
Thought you were going to say a whole lot of caffeine, like get me focused.
Oh no, no caffeine. Too sensitive.
That's interesting. I'll play with that later down when we, anyway, I'll play with that with a different process we're coming to. Anyone else know what they like, what they need? Are they anything in place, whether they have to do a meditation beforehand, caffeining up, they need the pictures, they need like anything?
Yeah, so I've got both of the books, and then I've got to take notes. Like, I'm a note person. If I'm not writing it down, then it's gone. It's the only way I can stay focused.
Yep. Yep. So you saying, Nicole, like your hands are moving at the same time, like you're listening, writing, the whole body's getting involved?
Yes. Because if I'm not writing it, it's gone.
That's interesting. I wonder where that strategy came from. You don't have to answer.
I don't know. No, I'm just like thinking. I don't know.
What about you, Ray? Do you know what you need to get into that learning state?
I'm easily distracted, so I need to go somewhere where there's no one around to stay focused. Otherwise, I can just go off really quickly. So I need zero distractions. Otherwise, I'm gone.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and so last week when Achilles was crying in the other room, I was like,
I ended up having him here in my arms, and and today I said to them, you have to leave by 5 o'clock. I need to just quieten down, and that's never going to happen again. Just even hearing him upstairs, I couldn't do it. I would want to go up there and settle him myself. I couldn't do it. So that's not going to happen again. So I apologize for that too, for last week.
oh, no, like I can't believe I missed out on seeing baby. But anyway, so we'll do it another time.
I was hiding him, hoping he couldn't see him. But yeah, I'm easily distracted, so I need to just be on my own. Otherwise, yeah.
I'm gonna be cheeky and tell everybody I had a session with Ray once, and I'm like, "There's a baby on the way," and Ray's like, "No, there's not," and I'm like, "Yes, there."
You're gonna be a grandma soon. I'm like, no. 2 weeks later, oh, pregnant. Yeah,
I'm gonna meet this baby in person instead of in spirit. Anyway,
beautiful.
So what I'm going to do is going to invite everybody to just to follow my voice, follow the instructions. What I want you to do is to notice a spot that's probably above the camera level. Find that dirty mark on the wall or something that's just to completely focus on. A couple of deep breaths. And as you pour all of your attention onto that spot, I want you to then put your hands up so that you can just start to see the wiggling of your fingers just outside of your peripheral vision there. And so while you continue to focus on that spot, I also want you to start to drop your awareness so you can start to see those fingers. And then I just invite you to notice how far back you can pull your fingers while still staring at that spot. And to be able to notice how much information that you're actually taking in. Now, while we're playing with this, just because we can, I want you to try to think of a negative thought and notice what happens instead. And then just again, bringing your attention, all of your attention onto that spot. And when you're ready, coming back to the Zoom room. What did you notice?
I lost focus of my fingers.
How did your
When I
mind
thought of a
feel?
negative thought, then I lost focus of my fingers.
Yeah. Could you hold on to the negative thought?
No, like I could let it go because I noticed it, and so I went back to my fingers.
Yeah. Anyone else want to share?
I couldn't even form the negative thought.
Yeah. Gold star for you, Hayley. Yeah. Anyone else want to talk about the weird trippy stuff we do on Tuesday nights? Anyone else want to share? That you're all stunned. Anyone else just sort of feel their energy just sort of, I don't know, come back into that flow state, just that sense of body relaxing?
I loved it, Claire.
Yeah, you can.
I did. I actually feel like it just grounded me, and it just yeah, I was very much the same. I couldn't think of a negative thought at all. It just wouldn't even allow a space for it.
Yay. This is known as expanded awareness. This is known as well as the learning state. So it is encouraged to do this anytime that you have to do any heavy duty thinking. It is also good for those moments when you're completely stressed out and you need to get your mind, need something to interrupt your mind. And that is like the Mel Robbins 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It'll get you out of that state. If you're somebody who, or know somebody who's anxious, my daughter's got autism. So if we take CJ to a restaurant or something, they get agitated by the sound of chewing, and it's like, okay, expanded awareness. And then they can't hold on to that negativity in that moment. It breaks the state so that the meaning and the change, it changes. So this little tiny process can be used in multiple different scenarios. Anyone sort of got ideas of like, oh yeah, I need to teach my daughter, or yeah, I need to play with this more? Anyone sort of feeling that pull? Yeah. Let me go into a little bit of the science and the slides of what's going on with this particular process. So to improve your learning and attention, expanded awareness will relax the state of mind, again, also known as that learning state. It creates that mental condition of both total focus and receptivity to new information. So a state of expanded awareness is created when a person's eyes are totally focused on one spot in that foveal vision, while the attention is placed in the peripheral. So expanded awareness will get you to come out of that mental mini-me rumination, even if it's just for a moment. It's that one more step closer to empowerment. This has been proved highly effective for everyone, even people with ADHD, learning problems, or learning challenges. It's the optimal state when taking in large amounts of information. So there is evidence that it actually synchronizes both hemispheres of the brain. And to keep in mind that the mind learns best when it's in that relaxed state, allowing that information to pour in. So when the mind is used as that ambient tool, it tends to make in new connections. So the more you're relaxed, even the more playful you get with this, the easier it will be to retain the information that we're sharing. Just some of my visuals there on what it looks like to expand your awareness. And for those who are spiritual in the room, starting to play with this before you link into spirit or any of your psychic gifts, because this will start to access stuff that's outside of your logical mind. If we were in the classroom, this is the instructions I would ask you to do. Find a spot above my head and it'll look at me weirdly. No. More visual representation. Sorry, I'll get past these. Yeah, so if I'll go over the steps again to ask your client to focus on a spot above eye level at a distance and get them to pour their attention into that spot completely. Once they do this, get them to focus on everything that isn't that spot without moving their eyes. So as they do this, they begin to relax. And you can use your sensory acuity just to start to notice their breathing will change, their muscles will relax, the pupils will change. And as that happens, you'll start to notice that they've gone into that learning state. And then when they appear to be in that state, again, reconfirm that they're doing a good job, you're doing it right, you can learn better now. And then when they're ready, just to come back to now and to be more focused in what's about to happen. What I was saying earlier, you cannot, I don't know if I go into this in prac as much as I do in masters, but you cannot go into the negative state when you're in that peripheral vision, expanded awareness. And then, yes, I do go into it. So because this is a side step, you don't need to know this as a practitioner. Most NLP people don't even know this. Often when clients focus on stress and problems, their energy will actually restrict down. And you notice that, like, when you're stuck in a problem, your mind is fixated, you're looking at that problem, it's exhausting, draining your immune system. When you expand out your awareness, your mind will start to relax. This is like that artist's creative flow state where you can allow in new channels, new possibilities, getting into, like, if you're doing social media, what do I want to talk about? Get into that flow state and you'll find yourself accessing more of that authentic truth that your soul wants to share. So is there any questions before I go too much further on that one? The science behind it, this is what I was saying, most NLP people don't know this bit. I thought it was coming up with the slide. And you don't have to know this, but this is just where my mind goes. When you're in that foveal vision, your eyes are looking for the detail. This is like your daytime vision. This is like looking for the specifics on what do I need to know. When you go into that peripheral vision, your brain has to actually switch off, I think it's the cones, and then you start to utilize the rods in your eyes. So this is really starting to explore where you are in time and space. Again, you don't need to know that, but I just find that stuff absolutely fascinating when you're working with the spirit world. Now, why I was asking about sleep last week, and Sarah, I invite you to give this a go, is if you are having trouble sleeping, then you do the same process, but with your eyes closed. So eyes are closed, and that you look at the outer edges of your inner eyes, and then just start to deeply breathe and just to give yourself that expanded awareness feeling. And notice that the busyness, the to-do list, spirit talking to you, all of that stuff has to fade away as you start to rehearse that. So this is another way that you can use expanded awareness. So before we move on to the next chapter, is there any questions on any of that?
Can I just ask a question? When you said while in that peripheral vision you cannot hold on to negative states, why is that?
Yeah, because you're actually accessing a different part of the brain. So when somebody is fixated on the problem, the attention detail gets focused on, and this is actually requiring your energy to expand out so there isn't a spotlight on the problem.
Claire, is that similar in that David Schneider thing? He talks about think of the negative problem and where is it? Like, if is it up, like look left or right, and then you he tells you to move it to the other side.
Yeah.
And then
So
go back to it and you can't think of the negative anymore. Is it a similar thing happening there?
no, it isn't actually. He's playing that one. He's playing with people's convincing strategies, and he's playing with their submodalities, which we will go into.
Okay.
That's not taught by the NLPAA, but I'll tell you ahead of time, Nicole, there's going to come a time about maybe week 4, 5, I can already anticipate it, where people come in tired. And that's the night that we start off doing that to wake people up.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll hold that thought.
So like, okay, shrink down the tiredness, blink it black and white, do all the fancy stuff. So it's coming. Cool.
So Claire, that's more of a short-term like reset strategy rather than something long-term to work on.
Yeah, that's something in the toolkit for both. Like if you're stressed before training, okay, go into expanded awareness or a meeting or job interview. That will get you into that optimum receptive state very quickly. I think the Hawaiians utilize that and please somebody else help me with the Ho'oponopono. Somebody please help me with what that is. What is that, Manny?
Sorry, I missed that.
Oh, I was wondering, like, there's the forgiveness modality within the Hawaiian modality, the Ho'oponopono. Oh, I was hoping you would have come across it in your mind valley. Doesn't matter.
No, not yet.
You know, when we've got Instagram people wanting to help clients get into that flow state, doing that will absolutely get you into the flow state very, very quickly. So if you become a master at that and incorporate that, whether it's into your yoga, into your training, into your busy meeting, that will relax the mind so that you're in a much more receptive space. So it's not just for the negativity.
Cool. I might have to try it in yoga.
Yay. Any other questions on that one?
Just with the sleep one, I was trying to work out where the outer edges of my inner eyelids was, and I couldn't.
Right. And I couldn't draw it on the good old Canva. Rachel, if you practice it in the daytime and notice how your body responds, then it's sort of doing that again with your eyes closed.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Because then again in masters, maybe I'll play with it on another night. But in masters, there's a whole process there where think of your problem. Now put your problem onto that spot and focus all on the problem, all on the problem, all on the problem. Now expand out. And then notice when you've got that expanded awareness and start to invite the solution to pop in. A, you can't hold on to the problem. And B, you've gone into that flow state. So the solution starts to stream in. It is so trippy and weird. So even though I'm giving you this powerful tool, like you can really expand it out, pun intended, for all sorts of different ways to play with it. So yeah, just get familiar with the eyes open piece, and then at nighttime, yeah. Any questions on that one? Being fun to get your clients to do that into that space, get into that space too. Bear with me. I'll quickly have a look at the slides. I know it's getting late and the brain wants to switch off. Let's quickly check. What I want to do is I want to go over a little bit of the cause and effect piece. It'll tie up the presuppositions piece really nicely, and it'll just go over more of that theory side of things to mean that we get to the fun processes sooner. Page 21, if you've got. And I won't engage too much with this. We'll just move along this piece a little bit quicker. But in your own mind, I want you to think about if someone is late to a date or a meeting with you, what meaning do you put to it? And then if somebody is really, really late, what meaning do you put to that? And then I want you to notice whether your energy went to being worried. I wonder if they're in a car accident, or possibly your energy went to anger, like, why aren't they considering me? You know, they do this all the time. The situation didn't change by somebody being late, as that as an example. The situation didn't change, but your mind automatically put a meaning to it. Now, the question is, which direction did it go? Were you at cause or were you at effect? So what we're going to delve into briefly tonight is the difference about being at cause versus being at effect. It is what it sounds like. Being at cause is knowing that you can be responsible to create the change, to be in that empowered state. And to be at effect is people who get stuck and caught in that drama, the perception that things are happening to them, that victim-y kind of energy. In NLP world, when we're at cause, we are aware of how we influence the events around us and therefore responsible for our performance and our achievement, which goes hand in hand with the presuppositions. When we're at effect, this is when we're at the mercy, you know, the world's happening to you, the poor performance, the lack of achievement. Yeah, we all know people who play at effect quite well. Yep. So again, really briefly, being at cause, knowing that you're responsible to create change that you want, and the effect that the perception that things are happening to you. So as I said at the beginning, each and every scenario you experience, your mind is automatically going to put a meaning to it. The ego is going to be very quick to do that too, and put that judgment on what's happening around you. So when you get caught in that spiral of judgments, the drama, the comparisons, imposter syndrome, you're going to very quickly drop your energy, going to lower your frequency, leaving you feeling quite heavy and dense. And so again, when you're at that effect, that's when it's just really difficult to get out of. We're going to go more into the language side of things way down the track. But as a coach, if somebody's coming to you and they're completely out of effect and they say, like, she makes me so angry, the coach's job is to play with some of their words to get them to recognize they're actually back at cause. So specifically, how does she cause you to be angry? And so putting the responsibility back on the client to be able to look at things through a different lens. And so my question, if this was earlier in the night, if anyone wants to speak up, please do, because I have a lot of fun with this. But do you know anyone in your life who regularly gets caught in being at effect? Do they vent, you know, trauma bonds, get stuck in that judgments, the drama, the comparison? Like, are we all nodding? Do we know people like that? Courtney, you didn't nod. You don't know people like So as a coach, it's good to come in with that presupposition to check in, you know, like, why is that person actually attracting that? Recently, I had a client, I think I told you this last week, where she was saying her 29-year-old son is depressed and like, what can you do, Claire, to fix him? And I'm like, no. He's not even asking for the help. It's like, okay, why have you attracted that? How is that a problem for you? What is the judgments here? What's going on? So briefly, again, because I know it's late at night, but when you think about your past, when your energy was low, maybe bullied, felt criticized, judged, maybe the other way, like the spotlight was put on you and you didn't want it to happen, there are definitely going to be situations and scenarios in the past that can create, an adult can still pull on those old stories to why they're at effect now. Some coaches will say, like, are you at the effect of your family? So you want to check in if there's situations and scenarios in your past that are the reason why you're doing what you're doing, that's causing you to hold on to that story. You want to go and clean that stuff up. When you're at cause, this is when you're prepared to deal with the consequences of your decisions. So I know that some people I've worked with where they've been a people pleaser, like what Ray was saying, there's people in their world where they take, and then you start to recognize and you pull back. Well, the pull back was when Ray was at cause going, actually, I'm not playing this game anymore. And in fact, I'm prepared to deal with the consequences, whether they arc up or I have to pull back even more. I'm at cause. I'm going to be responsible for my energy, who I surround myself with, and to know my value. Is that making sense? So, like we spoke about last week, to be at cause means to have that confidence, that trust in yourself, trust in your choices, trust in your ability to be resourceful, no matter what the outcome is. Because a lot of the time, people get confused with being at cause as just being the observer, love and light, peace to all. But the cause piece actually goes a lot deeper in being okay with the consequences for whatever decision that you make to look after yourself. Anyone want to add anything or any questions on that? No, that's all good. We'll wrap things up very soon. So yeah, I'm going to skip that one. We covered that before. So the cause and effect, the law of cause and effect, it's my choice to own my self-worth. It's my choice to implement my boundaries, not the expectation that they know my boundaries, but I'm at cause when I implement my boundaries. And it's also my choice to elevate. So it's like, yeah, I'm not playing in this lower frequency anymore. Just quickly. Now, if you are finding yourself attracted to scenarios where people are bringing you down with drama, maybe you're attracting in car accidents, God forbid, being hacked online, it's actually really, really well worth unpacking what's going on for you at a deeper level, what's going on that's caused your energy to drop down, that you would even attract in those scenarios, to check in, like, yeah, why that protection has been dropped. In the coaching framework that I use, I'm actually, if somebody's, I'm thinking of like somebody who had a burst tire, what do we call it? Like flat tire. I'm looking for like the secondary gain. Did that person actually want to go to the thing that they were driving to? Why did they attract that? Are they low on energy and they're saying yes to things that they really should be respecting their body and saying no to? Me, I'm going to be looking at soul contracts, obligations, limiting decisions, limiting emotions, the fear of being judged, what they're deleting out of their reality. So when people are attracting in problems, situations, and scenarios, I'm always looking at what's the benefit for them to actually have that problem, which sounds counterintuitive, but they're doing something there with their energy to, like that presupposition that's actually working for them. And so lastly, we're going to finish up on this slide. If you find yourself at the effect, think the tools that I turn around if I'm not talking to a friend who's a coach is like, okay, for what purpose? What's the positive intent that I've created this stressful situation, that I found myself in this situation? What's the positive learning I can get from this situation that I can take with me in the future? And what do I need to learn to do things differently so that I'm prepared with the tools next time if I ever get caught in a scenario like that? So yeah, there's different types of coaching questions. There's one more here. Linguistically, I invite you to start listening for people who use this, especially on TV with the news. Anything after a because is a justification or a judgment. So if somebody says, I have no idea where this is coming from, but I have to eat apples. I have to eat apples after I get to work. I don't know why that came up. We're looking at the judgment. We're looking at the justification. The because is highlighting some potentially limiting belief that the apples are going to do, like, that's probably a really bad example. But just start to notice that how people justify themselves when they use the word because it's going to tell you what's actually dropping their energy if they come to you with a problem.
Claire, would it be
cleansing
like
breath.
Claire, would it be like I I hide away and eat chocolate bars because my kids make me really stressed.
Yeah, it can be like it can be that, but it can also be super subtle that people don't know they've just told you their limitation. So I give my husband a kiss because I don't want him to have an affair on me or something like it'll be
Oh,
so.
okay. So there's fear there. Yep. Okay.
If you're working on a problem, like it's we're trying to think of a different scenario. Well, it's late at night, my brain's gone blank. Yeah, like my daughter Maddie going, "Look, yeah, I have to be on the treadmill because I have to get fit." Yeah, and it's like because you have to get fit. Like, what's going on here with the limitation? What's the mind? Where's the mindset going with that? Yeah, it's at this stage, early in the coaching side of things, you start to tune yourself to pick up on those really subtle points because they're the ones that will open the gateways. Karen can expand on this, but it's like this is the gateway that really people will tell you what motivates them, right, Karen? These little hints.
Oh, sorry. Yes, absolutely. You will. I think it's your listening skills will be elevated to pick up on cues like that. So words become, yeah, you'll reflect back on words to check in on meaning and you can sort of work out where to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Cool. Any last questions there before we wrap things up? Yeah, sure.
I've got a question about the because so I've just been playing around with clients with goal setting. So trying to dig deep on what their limiting belief is and then replace.
You went on mute then because you don't want to tell us. No, sorry. Why is it going on mute? We can't hear you.
Oh, that was weird. Yeah, getting clear on what their limiting belief is. So driving towards of what they're releasing and then what they're replacing with. So essentially, for example, I'm letting go of the limiting belief that I don't know enough because I have the tools already or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I've been finding that quite impactful. But would you say that, that's a good way to sort of approach it?
It's an interesting way to approach it because it sounds like his name just went out of my head then. Tapping guy. Anyway, Nick names just went out of my head. It sounds like you're getting to the deeper reason on what's their why, what's their motivation.
Yeah.
But then as a coach shell, that will help you identify what's the limitation.
Yes.
Yeah, you got that then?
Yeah.
So they may be telling you one thing, but you go listen to what they're really telling you.
What they're actually, yeah.
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 Good question.
Hmm.
Any other questions there? So we covered a lot. Hopefully you'll sleep well. Otherwise, you've got the expanded awareness tool in the toolkit. Please fill out that rep system. I'll probably post about that tomorrow morning or now, whenever. The rep system. Have a play. Have a play with just noticing again people's needs, starting to listen for their language. And next week we'll go into your representational system. So it's a lot of fun, that one. So I'm really looking forward to playing with you next week. Cool. All right. I'll see you all next week.
Thanks, Claire.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.